everyone, it's Desiree, and I am here for Simon Says Stamp and their new release, Rest and Refresh. Sounds awesome already, right? Yes. So we are going to be working with this die. Now, first of all, it's got one of my favorite things. It's a tag. I love tags. And it's got an anchor cutout. So this is kind of interesting. So, you know, when I first saw this, I'm like, wow, it kind of stumped me. Because I love tags, but it had a cutout in it. It's, you know, what do you do with that anchor? So what I did, I dug around in my scraps and I pulled out, for some reason, when I see the anchor, I think of red, white, and blue. I don't know why. And I'm just cutting strips. And the Tim Holtz tonic cutter is great to cut very narrow strips to wide strips. So I don't think I went wider than maybe 3/8 of an inch, maybe a 1/2 inch, but I know I had a 1/4, I had an 1/8. So I had some different sizes. And I'm going to do that in red, blue, and of course white. I'm going to pull that out. After those strips are cut, I'm going to grab a piece of copy paper. Just, you know, I just grabbed one from my printer that's in my room here because I didn't want something too thick. I'm using my double-sided tape that is extremely strong, but it's very wide. I don't have, I couldn't find my double-sided adhesive sheets. So I figured this would do the trick. So I'm just going to lift up this edge and just overlap so that I don't have any gaps as I lay down my strips. So I'm going to place my tag up there and then cut this down so that I know I will have the right amount or the right size for my tag. And I'm just using my long shears to do that. I do apologize. Yeah, we've got created now with the bandage that's on my finger with washi tape. Yeah, the band-aid was coming off, so I needed something to secure it. So on an angle, I'm going to take these strips and I'm just going to go to town and set them in place. So once the first one is set, I found it was easier to look at it this way because then I was able to continuously just butt these strips right up to each other. I didn't want to have a gap. Now the issue is with the tape that I'm using, this double-sided, it is very strong. It is not forgiving. So I needed to make sure that as I was putting it down, it was just going to go right up to the other side. So it's a great tape. I love it. It is my favorite double-sided tape. This is what I also use to make my glitter panels and everything else, but it's just not forgiving. You will go with it. Once you put it down, you must go with where it's at. And so forth. So it can be very frustrating. There's a learning curve to it. So once I have all of these strips, I'm going to use my long shears and I find this very wonderful to cut these pieces off. I know. See what I'm doing with the scissors? Don't do that. Do not do that. That is how I cut my finger very badly. Not on these scissors, on another pair that I have. So I ran that through. I put the die on top and I ran that through. I also ran it through using some silver cardstock, silver mirror cardstock. And I thought, I could make 2 cards in one, which I could have done. You know, I could have used the red, white, and blue to put in the center of the silver, but I wanted a silver anchor. So I had to use that piece, but I'll save it and I'll use it in something else. So I grabbed my twine. And what I did was I took this, adhered it onto my anchor, and then I wrapped it around. So yeah, this was a production here. So that's why I edited it. But I have it wrapped around and then intertwining on the bottom along my anchor. So you can do that. And you can do that with twine, you can do that with thread, you can do it with anything. Wire, but you really need a thick piece of cardstock. So I'm going to set that aside. Now what I'm going to do is I have these brads, and I want to make sure I want that at the top, but I didn't want it to go through my card panel because I'm going to go straight down onto my card panel. But I didn't want what I noticed was when I was putting that brad on, since I use copy paper, it was very thin. It was flimsy, and I didn't want the brad to rip through it. So I just die cut another one. I could have used the silver one, but I wanted to save that for something else. Just out of some white cardstock, a piece of scrap cardstock, and put that to the back to make it a little stronger. So the brad's acting as an embellishment. I'm now going to cut very super thin strips of my double-sided foam squares because I want the anchor to be propped up. Obviously, because I have the brown twine going around it, but I just want to make sure that that's very dimensional. I'm grabbing a sentiment from a stamp set from their previous release called Chillin' Frenchies that I had showcased last month. It was absolutely, yeah, brads will stick to your magnet. Don't fight it because, wow, very strong. I think I was about to rip that. Very much so. So the sentiment that I'm using Soft Navy by Simon Says, is let's hang. I thought it was appropriate. You know, tag, hanging, brad. Yeah. All right. Remember, for some reason, I do find inspiration from my sentiments. I kind of create a card based off of what the sentiment says in some cases. So when I saw that, I thought it was perfect. I'm going to glue, and I used a piece of double-sided tape over the brad so that I'd be able to get that flat and adhere it. And then I used my art glitter glue for all the other areas. I'm going to carefully peel off the backing of these small pieces of double-sided foam squares. And I'm sorry, I'm making you see all of that. I thought I edited that out. Whoops. But once they are done, then they'll be able to sit in that section that's opened with that tag. And of course, it just adds a little bit of dimension. And then with that twine going around it too, that helps to level that out, make it even. So I grabbed some navy blue cardstock from my stash, and I'm just going to cut a panel 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. Just going to trim that down. And I had used my Simon Says Stamp stitched rectangle die to cut out my white panel. And I'm just going to use some fun foam to prop that out. And using my double-sided tape to make sure that it stays secure. Again, with that double-sided tape, once you get it down, it's down. It's just not forgiving, meaning it's just got a very strong bond, which is what I'm looking for when it comes to my fun foam. I do like to use liquid adhesive when I put my panel down. It gives me some wiggle room so that I can make sure that that sits straight onto my standard A2 size card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and it is a top folding card. So I do hope you enjoyed today's project using one of the products from the new release from Simon Says Stamp called Rest and Refresh. All the products that I used will be linked down below in the video description here. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave those down below as well, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I want to thank you so much for stopping by and spending just a little bit of time with me today watching the video. If you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe. Make sure you ring the bell so that you don't miss the next video that will be out shortly. I hope everyone's having a great day. Take care, but always remember what's most important. Always be creative.